Hello, everyone. Welcome to another recording of It's Me, Not You. Welcome, everyone. Hello, Jake. Hello, Melissa. How are you guys doing today?
Fabulous.
Hello. I'm fabulous. I was born ready for this episode. I am here. I am Spirit's vessel for today.
Melissa, what about you?
Oh, fabulous as well.
Are you also Spirit's vessel?
Always candles lit.
I love that. I'm just going to turn this up a bit. Okay, awesome. So today's topic is going to be too many tools in your toolbox. And I want to start with Melissa. And Melissa, what is the first thing you kind of think of when you hear that too many tools in the toolbox?
So I think it's when you're trying to either connect to the other side, you're trying to do healing for somebody, and you're so stuck in your head, which is not where you should be. You should be in spirit and vessel, and too focused on you have to have studied all these different modalities, have to have, even all of these different objects. Like I can't be X, Y, or Z without all of these different things.
Mm-hmm. What about for you, Jake?
For me, when I think about too many tools in the toolbox, I always just kind of remember when I started off on this journey many, many moons ago. And I always just had this like preconceived notion that I needed to be an expert in every single thing that I wanted to tackle before I don't know, maybe felt comfortable or maybe felt like I had permission to release it onto the world. And so for me personally, that turned into me buying all the books that I could find, all the crystals that I could find, really to just come across the irony of, all the tools are really within us. So it was a really interesting journey for a long time, a lot of money spent, a lot of classes attended. Um, and so I always just like to reflect on it now. And I'm just like, okay, how can we kind of just start from the bare bones? And how can we kind of start almost in a way of like talking about accessibility? Because, what if you're somebody who can't afford hundreds of dollars of books and crystals and things of the like? How do we meet in the middle? How do you meet on life's terms? Um,
I was thinking about that. And Melissa, I know you're a Reiki master instructor. I believe, was Reiki like super, super expensive back in the day, like $10,000? Like,
Actually, it used to be free. I think it was Mrs. Takata that added the fee structure when she brought it to the West. But yeah, I mean, some people still charge that because there's not like a set international, fee kind of a thing. But I think that's the same with any class that you can take. There are some people and there's also the participants who think, well, if I didn't spend $10,000, it can't be good.
right. Yeah, it's interesting. I will say the one reason why I really respect IET is because we actually have a harmonious price guide and you can't price off of it. You can't price out of it. So these are the prices for everything that you do, period. And that's international. So I do respect that. And I guess for me, I'm like you, Jake, when I first kind of had the inkling of, intuition in a spiritual realm, I thought I had to get all the certifications and all the licenses and all the books and the cards. And, if I didn't have a line of 50 certificates, then who am I to think that I'm a healer or a reader or anything like that? And I've probably invested thousands upon thousands of dollars. And ultimately, I probably only really go into a couple modalities that I'm trained in, certified in, because those resonate with me the most. So I find it interesting. And I think the message we want to get to people is that, a lot of the power and your gifts are within.
but I also think that there's something to be said too about, having a good grip on a bunch of different various corners of your modality, looking at very different topics, having kind of an eclectic library or knowledge base to kind of rely on too. I might not necessarily, fall back on and use every single tool that's in my toolbox. However, I feel that I still use them all to make informed decisions and informed insights during my sessions. So it's the conversation of, how much is too much, but also at the same time, we're also valid in charging the price that we feel is equal to our time. But I also think that's neither here nor there when it comes to like the too many tools and like
Yeah, I
the
agree.
thousands of dollars, because then we get into kind of the whole, $10,000 world summit kind of thing. And
Right.
that's kind of where my point of view always goes to those kinds of things.
There's a $10,000 world summit.
Oh, I mean, circa 2014, all of the Hay House classes were classes of 500 people in Hawaii for what, $5,000, things like that.
Yep.
So that's really where my brain comes from. So
Mhm.
I want to just like correct myself, like for all of our listeners, I'm not really talking about the, $150 Reiki
No.
class that you took this past weekend. I'm
No.
talking about the big kind of corporateized, spiritual leadership / teacher community that has
It's
kind
like
of,
everything that's packaged in a beautiful bow that's presented in a corporate-esque where you have a table and it's not a one-on-one or one-on group, it's a one on 1,000.
yes, I'm addressing the corporate machine that has
Gotcha.
become spiritual teachers or spiritual leadership
Gotcha.
in many different ways
Yeah.
today, So
I also think
Jake is
though-
not liking that.
I know. The tools can really help. Like, yes, the gifts come within, but the tools help to give you
100%.
focus. So I do think that, starting out, it's easy for me to look now and see where I'm at and like, oh yeah, I don't need any of that stuff. But
Mhm.
when I started, a few things here and there definitely helped me to train myself to focus on whatever it was that I was trying to do. And I still get caught in the trap when it comes to teaching, like, because I don't have a bunch of certificates. I mean, I do for Reiki and for those things, but for like mediumship, it's just, I know how to do it. I've asked Spirit for help in giving me the ways to teach it or messages to teach. But I do think we live in such a society that we require a certificate for everything. So we are trained to look for it when it comes to spiritual classes or spiritual modalities as well.
Mhm.
See, I will say that I have seen a more of a shift towards, you don't have to have a certificate, you don't have to have a degree, you don't, if you, to be a coach, you can just go on your life experience and you can just be a coach. So I think for me, there are some classes that I do want to make sure that the instructor does have a sense of knowledge. They don't necessarily have to have a certificate, but I need to know that the knowledge
Right.
that they're imparting on me is going to be a value in my life and what I'm trying to pull from it and trying to learn to move forward. So I do think there are a lot of people now that, present themselves as having a lot of certificates and knowledge and whatnot. And really, they may have just taken a Udemy course, and just watch videos. And it's like, well, where is the practice in that? Where is the, what did you do? Like Melissa and Jake, you both are mediums and you've been doing this a long time, but I'm sure you did a lot of practice before you started with your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. I was doing like online readings, email readings beforehand, like really just kind of like pushing myself out there to the universe. And I think for me, I don't know about you guys, but for me early on, one of my like really powerful tools that I found early on was energy healing, my relationship to energy, to interpret it, because it's, for me, in my perspective, I almost kind of feel like energy healing is like the Rosetta Stone to kind of almost a lot of everything else,
I love that. It's a universal language, energy.
Yes,
Yeah, it is.
And any energy healing modality, you're
Yeah.
learning to receive, interpret, experience energy, put it out there, send it back and forth, and then that translates beautifully to channeling, mediumship, magic, divination, all kinds of different things. So I was really thankful to find one of those powerful tools early on, and that kind of set the tone for me for the rest of the duration. But I don't know, who's to say that if I didn't step into energy healing earlier, maybe I wouldn't feel that same similar way.
Yeah. I will say that I was originally drawn to energy healing before I went on to anything else. I wanted to know, like, for me, as we all say this, energy follows intention, and just seeing the different layers of the energetic fields. And I'm fascinated by energy healing and how powerful it truly can be. And then it's definitely opened up other gifts. And I'm grateful that that's kind of where I started with myself. That and mindset work, a lot of mindset work.
That's another thing to be talked about too. I think that a lot of the tools are, I think sometimes we get tricked into thinking that a lot of the tools have to be external, but I truly think that a lot of the tools really have to be internal.
Yes.
You know, I, for me, it was a lot of like almost I don't know, self therapy is almost what I want to say, to like correct when you grow up in a society that does not, cultivate this gift or cultivate a culture that honors this kind of gift or this kind of energy based experience. It's a lot of having to do like inner healing, inner reassurance, and kind of learning to trust fall, but be the person that catches yourself, you know?
Yeah. What do you think, Melissa?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes into trusting yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest tool that you have to work with, and understanding yourself first.
Yeah.
Because if you can't understand your own cues or your own way that you receive energy, I describe the 7 chakras like little sponges. You're constantly filtering the energy that's all around you. And if you don't understand those and how you're perceiving or receiving the world,
Mhm.
then you're really going to have a difficult time being able to help others with their understanding or messages for them too. And trust. Everyone asks, well, how do you know it's not just in your head? So I think that's the
Mhm.
biggest kind of hurdle that
When I think of too many tools in the toolbox, you know what I think of is shiny thing syndrome. I can't
Oh,
tell you how many times I've sent Melissa a message and I'm like, oh, I want to take this class. You don't need it. I want to take this class. You don't need it. I want to take this class. You don't need
you need it. There are some I say, yes, it's shiny.
it. But I will say, like, I'm grateful to have a diversity of so many classes available. And I think for someone who's new on this path, it can be very overwhelming to be like, do I want to do Reiki? Do I want to do crystals? Do I want to do divination? Do I want to do mediumship? What would you guys say is maybe a piece of advice for how to kind of go find your road, find what class maybe lights you up instead of taking all 5,000?
uh,
It's a hard question.
it is a hard question, but for me personally, the way that I kind of make my informed decisions lately in my
Yeah.
own craft is I really just go with the one that I feel the most like, oh God, I am dying to learn all
Oh,
about
I love
that.
that.
The most recent one that I spent money on was, I think it was probably like 4 years ago now. I had found a teacher in Georgia, in Savannah, Georgia. Her name's Atlanta, who taught me how to read bones. Um,
Ooh.
We're both
and
like, can you read our bones?
yes, um, just because I had such a love and such a reverence for those really early kind of primitive
Yeah.
divination
Did you go to
techniques.
Savannah for this class?
No, I found her on Etsy. We did a
Oh my
Zoom
gosh.
class.
I
It was
love
so,
Savannah. You have to go.
I do have to go. It was so beautiful. I've always just had an appreciation for me.
Yeah.
Divination is my thing. So I always love looking into like the antique ways of
Yeah.
doing divination. So for me, I was like, oh, I feel it in my bones.
Oh, and you had to do bone reading.
Yes. So that's how I kind of follow it. You have to follow your gut and see, what do I feel the most excited about? Not, what do I feel is going to be the most beneficial, or what do I feel like I should be doing?
What
What
about for
excites you?
Yeah, what excites you? What about for you, Melissa?
So 2 things. One, when I was beginning, because I wanted every book. I have probably 4 bookcases in the house, and I do not have a very big house. So I would,
I got 4 right here in my office.
I would I had a queue with spirit. So I'm like, if this is for me, make my head like burn or my hands burn. So I would just kind of move my hand over a book. And then if I started to feel that energy tingle, like I was supposed to read this or supposed to do part of it. And then as time has gone on, because I still want to learn everything. I mean, I'm an Aquarius. I'm always in my head. I think overthinker section of my chart is super lit up. So now I'm realizing that the reason why I want to do so many different things is because it was me in a past life. Like I used to have that in some way. So now I've learned that it's okay to take a little bit of something and to get into it and find out, is this for me in this now for me to study? Or is this just like a treat for my soul? Like, oh, hey, yeah, you used to do this. Here's a little nugget for you.
I find that I don't know if it's my intuitive sense or if it's my team, like a book or something will come across and it's like I have to have it, and then I'll get it, and then it will go on my shelf, and then eventually I'll get to it. But like you, Melissa, I will probably just read maybe a couple chapters and then I'll put it down and then I'll go back. But have you guys found yourself like going back to books you maybe bought years ago that you're like, oh, now I need to read it? Like for me, the emotion code, that's like my newest thing. I'm like, oh, because I just did an interview with someone doing the emotion code. Maybe that's why, but it just sounds
Mhm.
fascinating. But I've had the book for probably 7 years. Never opened it.
Well, and I think we get it because part of us know we'll need it.
Yeah.
And then it comes to that point of, oh yeah, now I'm ready for it. Like,
Yeah.
because I've hit this milestone of remembering or learning or downloading or experiences or whatever it is, where it's going to really resonate with you before you'd been like,
That's such a good point. How many times have you started a book and you're like, I don't like this, or it's not resonating with you, and then you put it down and you go back and you're like, well, now it makes sense. That's such a
I
good point.
read Tending Bridget's Flame every year. Like I'm starting it again because we're almost to my favorite holiday of the year.
Your favorite
book. I love him book. I already have my table all set up. So yeah, I read it every year and I still get something different out of it. And it's probably been 4 or 5 years now.
How about for you, Jake?
For me, we're talking about like books that we went back to.
Yeah.
So
What
for
are we
me,
talking about? I don't know. Just
Yeah, I don't know.
listen,
whatever you want.
You're sparking so many narratives in the back of my head. For me, my most recent ones that I always go back to are for all my divination friends, all my tarot lovers out there, 78 Degrees of Wisdom.
Ooh,
Love
I've
that
heard
book.
of that one. I'm writing it down.
By
Oh,
Rachel
we're gonna have
Garrett.
to make a book list out of this.
Oh my god, we have to do a book club.
Yes.
I'm already
Rachel
doing
has
a book club. Magical
Look.
mediumship. What up?
Yes.
But yeah, let's come up with a list, everyone. Great idea.
Yes.
Sorry for our listeners. We're gonna have a list in the description of books that we love and recommend. Go ahead.
So yep, 78 Degrees of Wisdom. It's just like a very like academic study of all the different cards and goes into the history of them. That I always feel like I dip in and out of, but I can only read it for a little bit of time for a short period of time. And then also my second one is I always mess up the title. Rachel, it's the one that I recommended to you. Shamanic Witchcraft by Christopher Penczak.
What?
Got it.
Such a beautiful book. I come in and out of it.
That's a good book. Got it.
Yes.
Thank you, Jake.
Oh my god, you're so welcome. That is one that I bought, God, 10 years ago. Tried reading it at the time, and I wasn't able to hear and absorb at the time the information.
Yeah.
But as the years went on, I found I was like, oh, I'm there now. I can absorb this. I can accept this info, you know? So to all of our friends who have bought books that didn't resonate in the first place, let it sit for a little bit. And if you feel called to it, dip into it, see how you feel now. You might be in a different space, you know? And in that same vein, for all of our energy healers, The Magic of Reiki by Christopher Penczak is actually a really good one as well.
He has other books. He's got a lot of good books.
Yeah, really good ones, especially for our friends that love to like really read and like self-teach. Yeah. Really good ones. Yep.
What about Ask Your Guides for Me by Sonia Coquette? I always refer that book to people.
I do love her very much.
I mean, that book is just so helpful, like getting to know your guardian angel and like very simple ways of learning how to connect. And she doesn't tell you that you need to have all of these expensive external tools to be able to do it. And it's written in a very easy to follow and understand.
I'm looking at my bookcase. I'm like, oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
And it's funny. We're going to say like, oh, you don't need too many tools, but here's our list of 3,000 books we love.
Listen,
I want to say, I think what we're all trying to convey is you can have a lot of tools, but trust the wisdom within.
Right.
But also for what Jake was saying in the beginning, there are mentors and teachers and people that can help you along this journey that are going to guide you and direct you, and maybe not go into that corporate greed structure and go into true coming from the heart teachers that really want to impart their wisdom on you. I think that's what we really are trying to convey.
Mhm.
You know, but yeah, get the 5,000 books also.
Yeah.
we're our own worst enemies, guys. Okay, that's what we're trying to say.
Oh yeah, we are, but it's also like you don't have to make the mistakes we did from, you know.
Listen, I am
1970.
great. I will say this. There are classes that I've taken that have been a complete waste of my time. You know, we can get into a list of those things, but I'll tell you, my books are super valuable. And I will go back to my books and I will, you know, take a couple of chapters. I'm like, oh, I love this. Like right now I'm reading a lot of Maureen St. Germain books. Like she talks about a lot about the 5D and, you know, multidimensional self. And I love these books right now. And I'm grateful that I can pick up a book when I'm having a moment and take on some knowledge. I'm one that does not do leisure reading. Like I wish I used to when I was younger. I used to read like 5 books a day, another story. But now it's all like healing, holistic, energy healing. Everything is just so I can gain more knowledge, just so I can get that one nugget that I'm like, oh, that's what I wanted to know. That's it.
I've been
Anything
into
else
some
you want to
shamanic
guys
books.
add in? What were you saying, Melissa? I'm sorry.
I just have been into some shamanic books lately, and there
Ooh.
are a few things that I have been doing, and then it's just one piece that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like, how did I not think of that?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's reading, you know, 80 pages for that nugget, but that nugget is worth everything.
Well, it's funny as I'm looking at my bookshelf and you just said that soul retrieval, I have a book of that I've never read. And now I'm like,
Sandra Ingerman.
yep. And I'm like, maybe I should read that now.
I might have told you to get that one.
You may have. Listen, I do take your recommendations.
You
I
do,
buy
same.
them.
Same.
And you know what? I think there's even something to be said too, especially like for the work that we do.
Yeah.
I have several books that I've read, several things that I've learned through them that I necessarily might not have found useful for me, but in several times in sessions or with friends, all of a sudden it will pop to the back of my head and I'll be like, oh, you know what? I think this would be really useful for you, or this little tidbit I think would be really useful for you. So I don't know. I think there's also something really fun about it, of having kind of an eclectic kind of library behind you, because you can kind of pull from it and, you know, make your own selections and make your own little concoctions from them, you know.
Do you know how
Do you
many
guys
times
do-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, do you use thriftbooks.com? Like you can get a lot of these.
Oh yeah, thrift
for-
books, Goodreads,
yeah.
Kindle. But I want to say to Jake's point, you know how many times I brought up the soulmate secret? Like I can't tell you how many times I've brought up that book. That writer should give me a commission. I'm like, you really
Same
have
person.
soulmate secret. That would be a good book for you. But it's honestly, it's a great book. And I can't tell you how many people I've recommended to and have found their soulmates. So it's a great book for anyone who's looking for your soulmate.
I love it. See?
And yeah, anything else you guys want to add before we wrap up our too many tools in your toolbox episode?
I was just thinking this while we were kind of chatting
Sure.
too, that aside from the topic of books, I also feel I'm thankful that I kind of came into this space in the generation of YouTube really kind of flourishing. And I will say that the early ages of, you know, YouTube, witchcraft community, spiritual community, psychic community, that was some really juicy stuff, you know, circa 20, like 13, 14, really cool stuff. So I have been really thankful to find teachers who taught me tarot, who taught me the practices of like readings. So I really appreciate a video platform, especially people who are offering it free. You know, you have a chance to kind of almost like fast date people, you know, watch a video, see their energy, feel it out, listen to what they're talking about. I think that there are a plethora of people out there, especially as a free resource. And with that, at the same time, I always think that the topic of, you know, making informed decisions and making sure that you're listening to your gut, vetting the resources too. So make sure you're kind of looking around, researching who you're looking into. But I also think that YouTube is a very valuable resource if you listen to your gut and make sure that we are, you know, paying attention to what they're teaching, because it has to make sense to you and you can't get that gut reaction. You have to listen out for the buzzwords. You can't, you shouldn't. You know, we all know them, you know, the ones where you're like, oh, that's an interesting tone to take here. There's a very interesting gatekeepy perspective that we're dipping into, much like kind of when you get into the whole topic of, you know, like TikTok, spiritual community too. So yeah, that's what I'll say, especially for somebody who has ADHD, has a hard time reading a book for a very long time.
Yeah.
YouTube can be a very valuable resource. But research your teachers.
Yeah. Research your teachers. What about for you, Melissa? Anything else you want to add?
Just kind of going on Jake's too. If you can't do a lot of research, you find something, just ask for discernment with like, is this the right video for me to watch? Or ask your guides, I'm looking for videos on this. Help me to find something that's for me. And it works. I call in my Google spirits all the time when I get
Yes.
something and I have to look it up. I mean, I did when I was broken open again. I just said, I need to learn how to use this, and angels show me where to go. And the first thing that came up was Omega. And I'm like, okay, show me something in my current price range, please. And then I found a teacher, I found Barb, and I love it. So yeah, now I just laugh that I have Google guides.
Google Guides. And I
My
think
Google guides.
to everybody's point is really kind of trusting your intuition, really coming out of the mind into the heart. I really like to say, God, angels, universe, show me my next aligned action. And then, try to look for those signs and symbols. And if it's a class, like Jake was saying, he did a bone reading class, which is pretty cool. There's other tools too. There's crystals, there's oils, there's herbs, there's candles, there's so many different things, and just kind of see what lights you up, see what you're interested in, and try not to go down the rabbit hole.
Yes.
And reach out to, people that you trust and say, hey, I'm interested in this. What do you think? Maybe other people that have taken the class or watched the YouTube videos or tapped into their Google spirits, and said, hey, this was a great resource. I think I'm going to recommend this to you too, So I just want to say thank you everyone for listening to our Too Many Tools in Your Toolbox episode. And I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.